This episode of the Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by Harrogate Springwater. Famous for its waters since 1571, Harrogate is Britain's premium natural source water. Hello all, you are listening to the Capsule in Conversation podcast. I'm Natalie Anderson, and today I'm joined by one of the UK's hottest rising theatre talents, Amber Davies, to talk pivoting from reality TV back to her stage roots, the journey to being sober curious, and balancing family and fame. So make yourself comfortable and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all! Happy Sunday! It is lovely to have you with us. How are you all doing? If you're anything like me, you will be taking comfort in the calming influence of stability and routine as we head into the final part of this year. And my guest today is no stranger to disciplined routines, as she's been treading the boards of the West End and UK stages for the last 4 years, taking on leading roles in 9 to 5, Bring It On, and most recently, Back to the Future, the musical. However, many of you may know her as the 2017 winner of ITV's hit reality show Love Island. She is the beautiful and super duper talented Amber Davies. Hi, Amber.
Oh my gosh, that was so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. We've got so much to talk about, especially with health and well-being. But before we get into that, how is it going at Back to the Future?
Do you know what? After the pandemic and all of that, it's a lot harder than I ever remember it. The 8-show-a-week schedule, I don't know whether it's because I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm only 25, but getting back into that routine after having a year out has knocked me for 6, but I'm loving every single second of it. I'm getting back in front of a live audience. There's nothing like it, but, you know, fueling my body, making sure I get enough sleep, and then I have to organise life, adulting, and all of that. It's a lot. There's a lot on my plate.
There is a lot on your plate, but as you said, you know, theatre and being live and stage is part of who you are. Now, many people wouldn't have necessarily known that about you a few years ago, but obviously I say pivoting, but it's pivoting back because it was already part of you that you were in theatre, you trained at the Erdang Academy, you know, following in your sister Jade's footsteps. Now, tell me where that love of theatre stemmed from.
Do you know what it was? My sister always had a passion for it. And now I'm 4 years younger than my sister. So I grew up watching Jade singing competitions, go to dance lessons, and I just as her sister was like, I want to do that as well. So from a young age, even I think I did my first singing competition in Wales when I was 6 or 7. I was on the stage from a really young age. And I think coming from a small town in North Wales, we didn't know, especially as a family, that we could make this a career. And it was only for my sister being brave and going to big auditions in London that she made that journey for me a lot easier because I had someone to learn from and watch. But yeah, I moved to London at 16, which now I think, how did my mum let me move to London at 16? My little cousin's 16 at the minute, and she would never be able to move to London. So I feel like we were really brave and beyond our years, like my sister and I. Do
you feel as well, like you was just saying then with Jade, you know, having somebody paving the way for you obviously has made it a lot easier. And would you say that she's probably one of the biggest role models?
She is my biggest role model in the industry. And, you know, even when I graduated from Erdang and I was going into professional auditions for West End shows, they knew my name, they knew my face because of Jade. She had done so many shows by the time I graduated, and she's got such an incredible work ethic that I think when I walked into an audition room, the panel trusted that I'd do a good job for them.
But that is a lot to live up to, though. You know, do you know what I mean? Like you said, if your sister's already built a reputation and then you're coming in afterwards, that's quite heavy on your shoulders, I would imagine.
It was. And the thing is my sister walked straight into a West End job from college.
Right.
And I didn't. I struggled. Because I looked so young when I graduated. I was 19. I looked like a child still. And
you still do. It's a beautiful, beautiful, lovely face looking at me.
Well, I'm 25 and I'm still playing a 17-year-old on stage. It's in the future, it will really benefit me. But when I graduated, it was really tough, and I was getting to the finals for a lot of things, but I wasn't getting over the finishing line. And in my head, I was thinking, well, Jade did it, so why isn't it happening for me? And then I got the first professional job I did was a cruise. So I was a lead singer on a cruise, and it was so amazing. I traveled all the Caribbean and the USA, but it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in London on the West End stage or in a UK tour. So my journey was a little bit different. And then, of course, when I came off the cruise and then Love Island approached me.
Oh, they approached you?
Yes.
Oh, so tell me about that. What happened?
So I think because I'd worked in a club in central London during my college days because, for extra money for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask my mum and dad for money all the time. And I connected to quite a lot of people in the reality industry. Not like they knew who I was. I knew who they were. And they'd followed me on Instagram. This was years ago now. And I don't know whether I was coming up on the ITV's discovery page on Instagram from them liking my pictures. I don't know, but I got this message in my Instagram DMs, and I was just about to come off the cruise, and it just said, would you like to audition for this ITV show? And in my head, I knew straight away, because I am a huge Love Island fan. I'd watched it religiously. And at this point, I was coming off the cruise. I didn't have any other work to go to. So I thought, absolutely, and I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I may as well go along with the audition process. And as I was doing the Love Island audition process, I was getting further down in the Hairspray audition. I was auditioning for Hairspray.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm not joking, the same day, got offered Hairspray and Love Island on the same day, and I just couldn't believe it. And initially I said no to Love Island and I took Hairspray because I thought I'd be silly I've been offered my first professional gig, I'd be silly to let it go. Or my mum and dad have put so much money and time into my career, but something in my gut was telling me, you've made the wrong decision. And I remember calling my dad and saying, Dad, how would you feel if... Oh. Yeah. And then he said, you know what? We'll support you no matter what. And so my dad was a lot more, do what you want. My mum, what if you come out of Love Island in 1 week and you've thrown away this? And I said, well, that's just a risk that I'm going to have to take. But I know in my heart, I want to live this experience. Not many people are going to be is going to be presented with this opportunity. And so I just flipped the decision, and I had to call.
So you had to call your agent, did you?
I called my agent, and she said there and then, I'm not going to be able to represent you anymore. So I not only made that big decision, she instantly said to me then, and she's lovely. She was lovely, and I completely understand why she did it. But she said, I'm going to be so out of my comfort zone. She said, I'm not anything to do with PR or TV. I'm theatre, so I am going to have to drop you. So it was a double.
Oh my goodness. That and for us that are working in the industry, getting your first agent is such a huge thing. It's securing that agent, because so many people within your class don't, do they? You know what I mean? And so getting one and then suddenly taking this opportunity and being dropped. I mean, how did you deal with all of those different emotions?
I think because I'd made my decision and I was determined, right, I'm going to do Love Island. I just said, you know what, this is what's going to come with it. And I didn't even think of the risks, really. I didn't think I know my mum mentioned, what if you come out of the villa one week in? And I said, if I do, I'll just find another. I just tried to keep a positive outlook. If I come out, I'll just find another agent and I'll start auditioning again. I think I just tried to keep it positive all the time. Otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
And I think you do need that kind of fearlessness. You need that energy.
Yeah.
And as you said, you were brave following Jade's footsteps, going from Wales to London at that age. And you do need that sense of fearlessness, and you do need that sense of kind of empowerment, I suppose. You're in the driving seat and you're in control. However, did you have any concerns about the show? Because obviously the show had a certain reputation for, the way people look and all of these different connotations that come with it. Were you nervous at all?
I think being the age I was, so I went in at 20, I was fearless. I had no ulterior motive. I just wanted to experience it. So it was there wasn't much fear. It was more excitement. I couldn't wait. And because I was such a huge fan of the show anyway, I kind of knew what I was letting myself in for. However, the first 2 series didn't really blow up the way that our series did. So what I didn't take into consideration, well, we didn't know, did we, how much it was going to blow up. So it was a lot more, the impact it had was much greater than I thought it was going to have.
Well, yeah, because you've got like 1.4 million followers on Instagram. Yeah. That level of fame, that level of, like you've just said, kind of overnight being thrust into the spotlight. Yeah. How did you deal with that? Were you nervous at any point? What did you anchor yourself with?
I think when I first came out, I took every opportunity as it came. So I did so many collaborations and things like that, which I never dreamed of ever think I was going to do. And I just lived in the moment. It wasn't until a year after everything had kind of settled, I'd been 100 miles per hour for a year. And obviously being a part of the winning couple, you have a lot more responsibility, and obviously the relationship didn't work out, and I was really hurt by that. So I was trying to navigate having this whole new world and being sad, because I did love him. I did love him so much. Yeah, I did. And I think I really came down a bit about a year after. I think Danny Dyer's year had gone in, and I hadn't processed any of it. I was just living it. And it really actually affected me quite a lot. And that's when I started to party and drink. I was drinking to mask, I think, feeling lost. I felt lost. I think that's probably the only way I could say it. And at this point, I didn't know whether the door was open for me in the musical theatre world, because we had blown up so much, and I was just so like Amber Davies from Love Island.
Yeah.
I didn't think that door would ever have been open for me again.
So you were dealing with that grief, I suppose, like the grief of the career that you'd been building all them many years from being a little girl.
Yeah.
And then the grief of a relationship that's not worked out.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's something that we're going to talk about a bit more later on, about how you've now moved into being alcohol free. And we'll go down that in just a second. But how then did you pick yourself back up? Because like you said, and it's one of the questions I've got for you later on, was that the musical theatre industry and theatre in general in that part of our industry is notoriously hard to crack and be taken seriously in. I experienced it very slightly coming out of a soap and going back into musical theatre. And it was very difficult. You know, you get labelled, oh, it's star casting and all this stuff. And you're like, I've been training my whole life, you know. So how did you pick yourself back up from that moment?
I remember, so my mum's a mental health nurse. So she's been my rock all my life. She's my best friend. And I remember going home and just breaking down to her and saying, you know, I miss being on stage. I just feel like I haven't got my spark. And she said, you can do whatever you want to do, you know. Nothing is unachievable. And we'd just witnessed that, like how my life had changed so much and how, you know, anything was possible. And so I had firstly gone to, I signed a contract with Curtis Brown, and they had actually seen me in my third year production. So they knew what I was about, and, you know, they'd seen my talent before the whole Love Island stint. And they said, oh, there's an opportunity come up. There's a new show coming to London called 9 to 5, and it's going to be an original cast. And I was really nervous going into the audition because it was my first audition post Love Island. And I thought, oh God, you know, are they going to want me? And I had all those doubts. And I just thought, I went into the meeting and I sang some of the material, and instantly I was like, this is what I want to do. This is it. I have to get this job. And I didn't find out until about a month later that I'd got offered it. And literally just like that, I had a plan for the year. I had a vision. I had been given this opportunity. It was like a light switch, like the ball is rolling. You know, and then I started to do press for 9 to 5. And that was amazing because I was talking about something that I loved and I could talk about it for hours. So that it just felt so good. It felt so good. I mean, when I got announced that I was doing it, the backlash was terrible.
I was about to say, what was that?
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was like stunt casting. No one knew my background. No one knew I'd trained. No one like professionally trained or anything. I genuinely think they thought I'd done it as a hobby and that it was stunt casting. And I remember I'd gone on the Lorraine This Morning show, the Lorraine show. And I remember saying in that interview, come and watch the show. And then you have everyone's entitled to their opinion. But so anyone who was saying all of the nasty comments and stuff, I always just used to say, please just come and watch the show and then you can have your opinion. And I think I won over like 99.9%.
Well, you would. I mean, honestly, anybody who hasn't heard Amber sing absolutely should go and find her on YouTube or anything and listen to her incredible voice. I immediately kind of go to Catherine Zeta-Jones. I'm like, oh my God, this girl, she's fantastic. And it was lovely to see you go into that show. And obviously, alongside you had Louise and you were working with Dolly Parton. I mean, how was that?
I started on a hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Louise and I got on so well because she'd been in the industry for so many years. She like took me under her wing a little bit and she was so fabulous. But I think a lot of the creative team and the cast were a bit surprised at, you know, my stamina and my work ethic. I think they even had in their head as well, oh, you know, she's just been through this. But I slipped back into it really quickly. And I think what was really important is that I had that work ethic and that discipline. So I didn't put myself, and I've never put myself on a pedestal to anybody. A lot of the cast I already knew because I was in Erdang with them. Some people were a year above me, some people a year below me. So they were like family already. But it was about and I even stay, like, to this day, I'm only because I've been through that experience and I have these followers, doesn't mean I'm any different to anybody else. And I work just as hard, you know, and if anything, because I did get put as a leading lady so early on, even leading, like, principals in a show has responsibility to keep up the momentum of the show. And even just for the cast, like having an open door for them to come and talk to me whenever they want and things like that. Just try to make sure that it was professional from the get-go.
And the show is about strong women, about women finding their way and earning their place and proving themselves. So did you really relate to all of that?
I did. And my one big number in the show was a huge ballad called Get Out and Stay Out. And just singing that every night was like therapy to me. Because I was still struggling from my breakup, the breakup that had happened. So I did take those emotions into the job. And I think that job really helped me not get over it, but the storyline and everything was just so fitting for that time in my life. I had to put this character on every night, and I thought Amber needs to take a little bit of advice from Judy Burnley, like who I was playing. And it did. Like by the end of the year, I felt like untouchable.
And did you feel a bit like you'd return to yourself, like that young girl?
Yeah. And I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be in that moment. Which was just great. And then when, you know, and then more jobs that I'd been announced with now, the backlash gets less and less and less and less. And when, you know, recently when Back to the Future got announced, there wasn't one, which was huge for me because I was looking out for it a little bit. There wasn't one bad comment saying stunt casting, because I feel like from getting 9 to 5 and doing Bring It On, I'm building a rep.
And also as well, you are, even the press that you do, you know, everything about you is very much kind of theatre and work related, and the love that you have for the job, you have moved away from that path of influencers and reality TV. And it is difficult, you know, and like we've said earlier, it's a brave step to take because there's a lot of money at stake, you know, within that market. And to say, no, actually, I'm going back to my roots, where it could be a lot less money. You've got to work twice as hard. But clearly it's what's driven you since you were little.
Yeah. And I couldn't, as soon as I'd done Love Island, I instantly didn't want to do any more reality TV because it's not really my personality. There's so many bigger personalities out there, and I just wouldn't want to compete with that, or I wouldn't want to change who I am, you know, just to go on, you know, more reality shows. So I'd instantly made that decision. And yeah, there was a lot of turning down things to keep my rep, a lot of money. I did turn down so much money. I lost so much money, but I wouldn't change that at all, because money comes and goes. It comes and goes, and it does not bring you happiness. Like I've just found that single-handedly. I've been in the situation, and at one point I felt like I had so much money, but I was like the most miserable.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's not all about the money. It's what fulfills you and what you feel good in your soul. You know, you've spoken earlier about the discipline, and obviously you are now playing Lorraine in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself in good shape? Because it's grueling, 8 shows a week. I know, and it's hard.
And I think with this contract, because in every contract I've done, I've always had a two-day weekend. It's not the same as everybody else, but it would be like a Sunday, Monday. You can, you know, have your downtime and rest. With this contract, it's the first contract ever, we only have 1 day off a week, which I am trying to adapt. That's why I said right at the beginning, it's been a bit of like especially after the pandemic.
Yeah. Because you worked partly through the pandemic and then had to stop.
Yeah, I did. Well, I did a TV show called Almost Never. So it was my first acting gig. So during the pandemic, I thought, what am I going to do with this time? And then I was like, do you know what? I'm going to try and get into television. And I'm not joking, Natalie. I think I did about 30 self-tapes, right? And I was just getting no. And then I thought, and then this one job called Almost Never, and it was on BBC iPlayer, and it was brilliant. I'm so glad I got to do that. I always forget, that I did that. And then I did Bring It On just out of the pandemic, which got cancelled early. So that job was that was full on. That was
a lot of movement, a lot of dancing in that show.
Yeah. And then that got cancelled. And then obviously, if that hadn't got cancelled, I wouldn't have got Back to the Future. But do you know, I must say this because it's so important. When Bring It On got cancelled and I went back out into the audition season, as you'd say, I did so many auditions. I didn't just walk into another show. I auditioned for so many shows and I was getting no, she's not right. And I felt like I was really, it motivated me so much to get this job. I felt like I'd just graduated again and that I was like hungry for another job.
But it's interesting because a lot of people will assume that you get handed jobs, that you're at that place in your career where, you go, oh, well, you just walk into a job. But no, you're doing the circuit and it is hard. Emotionally, it's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I'd done 7 rounds or something for another West End show, which I won't say which one. Emotionally, you get so attached every single round you go down. It's more emotional attachment. So when you do get a no, it's terrible. You put all that energy and time into it and you start planning your year around this contract, which hasn't even been offered to you yet. But yeah, I had a real grueling audition season this year before Back to the Future. And I wanted to say that to people because that is exactly what I don't want people to think, is that I just get handed it on a plate. It was tough. And I think the first time ever was the director, John Rando, when I'd gone into Back to the Future, he's American. He had no idea who I was. And then the producer came up to me once I'd got offered it and he said, I just want to let you know, John has no idea of your background and you're being cast purely for your talent. Oh. And I was like, oh my God, like this is what I've been waiting for.
And it is that reassurance and that seal of approval amongst your peers that is so important, isn't it? It's kind of, you do need that little bit of extra validation when you've come from, if you've done a detour, shall we say, you need it. You need that validation that you are good at what you do because you've trained so hard to do it. To have it all feel like it's thrown away is deeply upsetting, isn't it?
It is. And every time I talk to like people in the industry about it, and people go, oh, do you regret Love Island? I go, no, it changed my life completely. And it does not define who I am as a person. And if anything, I'm so glad I did it because it did change my life and it's given me so many opportunities. And I think I'm trying to celebrate it now more in my own head, more than trying to get away from the stamp of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. That's it. I'm projecting when I'm trying to not associate myself with it. That's an internal thing. That's not, I think everyone's judging me in it, not in life, in specifically the musical theatre industry. And actually, I need to change the narrative in my head and say, no, it's something to celebrate. I won Love Island. Not many people can say that. Yeah,
and that's voted for, by our public, and you've resonated with the public. You're very relatable to them, and the fact that you have that personality that people can see themselves in and can look up to you, and how was that actually being a role model for many young women? Has that been a bit of a responsibility for you? For sure. I mean, when
because I know you said before about now I do a lot of press. When I first came out of that villa, I had every bad article written about me that you could ever imagine, because I was just a normal 21, 22-year-old being a normal 21, 22-year-old, and I couldn't be that because I was making mistakes, and I was even like guys that I'd gone on dates with, because I was like this spring chicken. Like, of course I was going to go on dates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like it pushed me down. And I had to grow up really, really quickly. I had this platform that I was like responsible for. And I feel like I kind of had to train myself up now. But with regards to, I want anybody who wants to go into this industry, like that anything is possible. Anything is possible. Like, you only have to look at my sister, to know that. But what I'm doing, like with regards to social media, the older I'm getting, the more I'm pulling back a little bit. I keep it very like 2D on my social media, because I think I just love my private life so much.
And I think as well, when you've had that spotlight and that platform and everybody knows who you are, you then do genuinely appreciate, don't you, the moments of quiet, of family time? Because I know your family is everything to you. You're so close, and protecting that. How do you do that? I mean, do you get back home to Wales often?
I have an incredible relationship with my family. I don't go home very often, but my sister lives in London. So I see her a lot. I speak to my mum, honestly, we're on the phone 3 times a day because she's just retired. So we're like, but I have an amazing relationship with them all. They come down to London, but I think it's more of with this, not giving yourself too much on social media, because I've done it and it didn't get me anywhere. And I think as well, in this day and age, you only have to say one wrong thing. And so now what I tend to do is keep it as not a job, but I don't have the personality. Some people say everything on social media. They have their heart on their sleeve. And I appreciate that from people so much, because I could never do that now. And that's where I feel like it does come into being a role model as well. I don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And then, I want to, it's a difficult one. I'm kind of at crossroads with it.
I think what comes across to me, Amber, is, when you do have a chat like this with you, you see kind of how much, everyone assumes Love Island characters are big, they're loud, they're kind of outgoing, super confident, and we don't often see the more reserved, thoughtful element of somebody's character. And I think that's definitely with you what comes across, is that actually, that is one side of somebody's personality, and maybe also a more youthful side of you, whereas now you're a lot more mature, you're 25, you've been thrust into that spotlight and had to really live and breathe that whole experience and learn, like you say. And what lessons could you say you had learned from the whole experience?
I think I couldn't live my life the way I wanted to live it. I had to, my mum said, Amber, you can't do that. You're in the spot. Like, I had to be reminded quite a lot that I had responsibilities and I couldn't just be a reckless girl like any normal girl could be. So I think what it taught me was to grow up a lot quicker, so much quicker. And it taught me about definitely what I want and don't want, and there was times where stories had come out and I felt not that I'd only disappointed myself, but my whole family. And that, those moments like that, they're huge wake-up calls. So I think in all honesty, the whole experience just made me grow up so much. That's what I would say. But I definitely had to make a million mistakes to get to the person I am now.
But, and again, as you said, you are making way more like thoughtful decisions, really considering your life, your lifestyle. We touched on it earlier, you know, and you've now stopped drinking. And just tell me about that experience, because we had Millie Gooch on last season, who she's the founder of the Sober Girl Society. And she was saying the flack that she got originally for being sober and boring and all this. I mean, how has it been for you in the industry, especially?
I think it's gone hand in hand really well. I think not eliminating alcohol from a busy schedule is like probably the best thing I could do, really. And people say to me, do you go out? Do you socialize? And I say, yeah, all the time. Probably more than I ever have done before, because I can jump in my car and drive home and still get an amazing sleep. And I'm not hungover the next day. You know, it has changed my life. It has completely. And the reason why I went sober is because the older I was getting, the more alcohol wasn't sitting right with me. I felt the next few days I was emotionally all over the place. You know, even if I'd just had a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, the next day I was an emotional wreck. I just felt like it affected me so much. And it's not that I had a problem with drinking and I used to drink a lot. Like, that wasn't the case. It was more when I did drink, say it was like once a month, I would binge drink. So I wouldn't know when to stop. So I'd drink until I was drunk, and it doesn't take much for me to get drunk. Like I'm only slight, so I'd have a couple of drinks, and then next thing you know, I'd be like, right, we're going to freedom. You know, it was one of those. It wasn't just like I could chill and have a couple of drinks. And so when I made that decision, I've noticed such a difference in my life. Like, firstly, my sleep is amazing. My skin is, I feel like, you know, you get your breakouts with your cycle every month and all that. And if I'm a bit stressed, but like my skin isn't dehydrated and like I'm not like a prune. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the amount of money I've saved is crazy.
I think as well, what's really important is like moving forward, and Millie was the same when I spoke to her about this, was the amount of younger people turning away from alcohol because they know how detrimental it is to their health, to their focus. And, you know, when you're driven and you really want to get ahead in your career, and as women, that's really important to many of us, you need that extra focus and you need that extra discipline. So I also think collectively, the fact that there is more of a movement towards mindful drinking, you know, whether it's, you don't have to completely cut out alcohol, but it might be that you are a bit more mindful, a little bit more aware. There seems to be a huge shift culturally amongst younger people. Would you say that that's right?
I 100% think so. I know, you know, when I've been out or whatever, I've been at a work event or something like that, and people say, oh, do you not drink? And I say, no. Oh, I know loads of people that don't drink, or, you know, my sister doesn't. I think there's so many people that are are waking up. That's how I describe it. Are waking up. And actually, you know, alcohol is a drug, really. And so the only way I could describe it for myself was that I was moving forward with my life and wanting to achieve things without any distraction. It, like, alcohol for me was a distraction. And I just had, and I'm not now I could, so going after this year, I could probably mindfulness drink, but I had to cut it all off. I'm an all or nothing kind of girl.
Yeah.
But moving forward, I was actually talking to my mum about this the other day, because the year's up. I've done the year. And she said, are you going to drink again? And I said, probably. I don't think it's a forever thing, but I think I said special occasions, maybe. And it would be because I have no desire to drink at all now. And I never in a million years would have thought I'd said that. But it would definitely be I already know my relationship with alcohol has changed. And so I probably could now, after my year, mindfulness drink and only have one or two.
But it's like you said, you've not wanted to. And I know loads of people that have done the same journey as you, and they've said, actually, I don't want to, and I feel like I'd be taking a bit of a step backwards, really. And what's the point? I haven't missed it. I'm not really bothered. And socially, has that been, like I said, after a show when everyone wants to go out and everyone's like, come on, let's go to so-and-so or whatever. Have you gone, or have you just said, no, I don't want to go?
Oh, I go out. But I just don't drink.
Yeah.
So I go out. And the thing is I don't need a drink to have confidence. The only thing I'd say is that my night ends a little bit sooner than everybody else's. I get in my car at about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I'll go home. But I'm still there. I'm not getting any FOMO,
And you're not getting that hangxiety.
I'm not getting hangxiety. I'm not binge eating for 3 days after because I've been hungover. And I think as well, when you've been sober for so long and you observe on a night out, that would put you off.
When you see the mess and you're like, oh.
And I just think, oh my God, I wonder what I was like, because you don't observe yourself when you're drunk. But I remember thinking, God, I must have been a right mess when I used to drink. But that's all my night. I don't miss out on anything. I remember my little cousin came down. He was 19, and Chris Brown was performing at Proud Embankment, and I stayed there all night until 3:30. And that was my longest night. And I had to drive him and his girlfriend, because obviously they had been drinking. And I was looking at the clock at about 3:30, and I was like, we're going to have to go, because I have to drive home. But yeah, I did. I stayed in this club. Didn't have a sip of alcohol, and I was fine.
Do you think it's that disciplined nature that you have that has really helped you with this journey? Because I know for a lot of people it wouldn't be that easy, and I'm sure it wasn't that easy for you, but you'd made the decision, and as you said, you were sticking to it. Do you think that because you are a very disciplined person, it helped?
Yes, I'm incredibly disciplined, but I'm easily influenced. That's what I was concerned with. Because luckily my friends and my family were on board with it straight away. So no one pressured me ever to have a drink. But, say I went out and there was mutual friends out and offered me a drink. That's what I was a little bit worried with, was would I go, oh yeah, go on then, I'll just have one. But I didn't. So I noticed in this year, I have a lot more control in my mind than I thought I did. Because I thought I'd buckle. I really did. I'm so easily influenced. But I didn't. And I think as well, like, once I have something in my head, it's in my head.
And did you use an app or anything, or did you just do it on your own?
Cold turkey. Just nothing.
Oh, you see, she's very disciplined. You are. There's a reason that you're as successful as you are. Now, moving away from drinking and more into, well-being, how do you look after yourself? Like, if you had to create a place of calm, and that might even be in your dressing room, because you do need that downtime in between shows or something, what are the products or the practices that you go to?
My number one thing with a schedule like mine is sleep.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that I get my sleep in. Otherwise, it's a knock-on effect for the rest of the week. And I know, we can have stressful sleeps and things like that. But I prioritize sleep, which I've never done before, really. I used to have the mindset of you can sleep when you're dead. This completely changed. Now I know, because you recuperate when you sleep. So you do, like, your voice can recuperate for the next day and things like that. Diet is huge. I try and feed my body with as much goodness as I can, but I'm not crazy strict on it. So, you know, a couple of days a week, I will have like a naughty meal if I fancy it, because I do think as well, God, I'm burning so much energy. If I'm hungry and I want something tasty, then I try and get my fruit, as much fruit and veg in as I possibly can. Also, I moved into my house just before the pandemic, and it was the first time I've bought a place by myself, and I did it up, and I'm not joking, Natalie. It's like a sanctuary. It's so peaceful, and I don't have clutter or anything like that. I'm so not OCD, but I just try and keep everything clean and tidy as possible. So when I get home, everything's done and there's like no mess or anything like that. And I that's so easy for me to say, because I am a woman who lives by herself, and all I have to be responsible for is me. I know when you have a family and you're in a relationship, other factors come into it, but right now it's working for me. You know, I have that safe space at home.
And as you said, it is important that, because you need mental clarity, and that can give you mental clarity is having just that peace and calm. And I'm wondering if, you know, the chaotic year that you had, like with the whole Love Island thing, and, you know, and it can be chaos.
It is chaos.
Now that you're in control of like your own destiny, like you say, you've got your schedule, and creating those kind of pillars of calm and when you're in control of it all, help you move forward.
100%. Like that's so nice what you just said. It's being in control of your life. And I don't know how many of us, because I was not in control of my life at all. It took a lot of work to actually own everything I do in my life, and not being too like, God, you can be reckless, like, you know, but you have to just be intelligent about it, you know.
And do you think there's an element of what you've learned is accountability as well?
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time as well, when I was younger, I used to like think not the world was against me, but I used to blame others for my behavior. I never used to take, I never was fully responsible for me, you know. And I think that is huge. It's something that we should really think about in our life, is that you are solely responsible for you and no one else.
Oh, that's such a lovely sentiment, and you're absolutely right. Before we quickly finish up, I just want to know, obviously, I know you've got Back to the Future now, which you're enjoying, playing the rain. But what would you like to do next? What's next for you?
I have so many things on my bucket list that I am ready to tick off. This year, I'm going to apply for an American visa, and I want to try and conquer Broadway. That's next. Before I have children, you know, before I settle down and get married and have those huge commitments, I want to go overseas and like try and conquer Broadway, because I don't think anyone knows me in America, so it'll be tough. But that's my next goal, 100%.
And if you've put your mind to it, I 110% believe that it will happen.
It will.
It will. I'm sure it will. And I really hope so. And I'm sure, you know, all our listeners, having listened to this chat, will definitely be rooting for you.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I've had therapy, honestly. So lovely. And you're so wonderful. You've got such a gorgeous energy. Even when I met you at Ascot, I just thought, God, you're such a wonderful human.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, I'm blushing now. Thank you for this mutual love that we're having right now. I mean, we have run out of time for today, but it has been an absolute pleasure to have you with me. If you would like to keep up with Amber's journey, please do. Amazing things coming from this gorgeous woman. Then you can follow her at AMB_D on Instagram. You can also catch her playing Lorraine Barnes in the hit musical Back to the Future, playing at the Adelphi in London's West End. For more well-being, fashion and beauty, you can visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page or subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Please, because this is a new season, feel free to leave your rates and reviews, and don't forget you can drop us a message at our Instagram page at Official Capsule. I will be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Amber.
Bye.
And goodbye from me. This episode of the Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by Harrogate Spring Water. Bottled at source, Harrogate Spring offers a pure, refreshing taste with a delicate blend of naturally occurring minerals and electrolytes, perfect for healthy hydration.